Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome, my dear students in grade 9 and prep 3 and our sons abroad. Today, inshallah, we will continue studying chapter 14 from A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, the story of grade 9, second term. The title of the chapter is A Spy is Unmasked. The title of the first part, A Prisoner of the Republic, سجين الجمهورية. Dr. Manet and Gabel spoke for Charles Darnley, and they could convince the jury that he was innocent. استطاع دكتور مانيت وجابيل أن يقنع المحكمة إن تشارلز دارنلي بريء. Charles was freed and went home with his happy family. However, the same night, 4 rough men in red caps, armed with guns and sabers, rushed into the house and arrested him once more. The 4 men told Dr. Manette that Darnley was accused by Monsieur Devarge, Madame Devarge, and one other person. Therefore, he is again a prisoner of the Republic. Here we will discover that Monsieur Devarge, Madame Devarge, and one other person. That one other person we will discover later that they added the name of Dr. Manette to denounce him without his permission. Solomon and John Parson. Jerry Cruncher and Miss Pross were doing the shopping when suddenly Miss Pross saw her brother Solomon, who she hadn't seen for years. Solomon had taken Miss Pross' money and left her alone in England, and now he lives under another name in Paris and has become a prison guard in Paris. أصبح حارس في السجن. While they were talking, Jerry Cruncher recognized Solomon. He was himself one of the witnesses at Charles Darnley's trial at the Old Bailey. Just then, Sidney Carton appeared and interrupted the conversation, saying that Solomon was himself John Parsard, the spy. Solomon هو نفسه جون بارسرد الجاسوس الذي اتهم من قبل القوات الإنجليزية أو الحكومة الإنجليزية بالتجسس لصالح الحكومة الفرنسية. Sidney Carton was following Solomon or John Parsard because he realized he was a person. He was a prison spy, and he could help him with his plan in Carton's mind. كارتون كان بيخطط لشيء ما وكان بيفكر في استخدام بارسرد كحارس للسجن اللي موجود فيه تشارلز دارني، يستخدمه في الإفراج أو في تهريب تشارلز دارني. Sidney Carton asked Parsard and Jerry Cruncher to go with him to Mr. Lorry's office. Parsard agreed to go for fear of being exposed. A plan to help Charles Darnley. Sidney Carton وضع خطة ما لإنقاذ Charles Darnley. Sidney explained to Mr. Lorry that Darnley was arrested again and that Dr. Manette would have no power to help him tomorrow when Charles is put in trial. So Carton was planning to use John Parsard to carry out a plan in his mind in order to help Charles Darnley. جون سيدني كارتون قال إن هو هيستخدم جون بارسرد عشان ينفذ خطة ما في عقله لمساعدة تشارلز دارنلي. When John Parsard refused to help Carton threatened that he would tell the Revolutionary Committee of Saint-Antoine about his real identity and that his name was netted in Madame Devarge's list. لما رفض إنه يساعده قال له it's okay مفيش مشاكل، لكن I will tell the committee revolutionary committee about your real identity and don't forget that Madame Devarge netted your name in the list of destruction. أضافت اسمك لقائمة الاغتيالات. Carton also told that he had seen him talk with his partner Roger Clyde who was a spy too. قال له كمان شفتك بتتكلم مع روجر كلاي وهو أيضا من الجواسيس. Parser said that Roger Clyde is dead and he keeps his death certificate in his pocket, but Jerry Cruncher gave Parser another shock. صدمه صدمة أخرى. He has approved that Parser had taken Roger Clyde out of his coffin and replaced him by paving stones. قال له ما تنساش ان احنا عارفين ان انت اخرجت الجثمان، وطبعا ما كانش فيه جثمان لان هم ادعوا ان هو توفي، لكن لم يكن توفي، اللي هو روجر كلايد. وضعوا في مكان الكفن بعض الأحجار، واللي كشف ده حرامي الأكفان اللي هو جيري كرونشر. John Parser broke down and confessed that it was their only way to escape from England, but he wondered how Jerry Cruncher knew all about their plans. طبعا ما يعرفش ان جيري كرونشر كان لص من لصوص الأكفان. Finally, John Parsons agreed to help Carton with his plan, but not to expect too much from him because he was only a guard at La Force. قال له لا تتوقع مني كثيرا. I'm just a guard. When Carton made sure that Parsons had the keys to the prison cells, he asked to have a talk with him in private. عندما تأكد أن جون بارسونز لديه مفاتيح السجن أو الزنزانات بتاعت السجن اللي فيها تشارلز دارني، قال له I want to talk to you privately أن أحدث لك معك على انفراد. Mr. Lorry wanted to know more about Carton's plan, but Carton said only that if it goes badly with Charles, I will be able to see him one last time. Carton couldn't sleep that night. He kept wandering in the dark streets. He went to chemist's shop, صيدلية, where he bought 2 bottles of liquid drugs. اشترى 2 من الأدوية التي تخدر. Questions and answers. Let's see questions. The first questions: who were the witnesses at Darnley's first trial? How were their words in favor of the prisoners? كيف كانت كلماتهم في صالح السجين اللي هو تشارلز دارني? The witnesses were Dr. Manette and Gabel. They showed the court that Charles was different from the other nobles. The people were greatly touched by the words of the servant and an ex-pastoral prisoner in the favor of a noble man. How was Charles Darnley freed, and why was he arrested once more the same night? كيف أطلق سراحه وكيف قبض عليه في نفس ذات الليلة بعد ساعات قليلة من إطلاق سراحه. Dr. Manette and Gabel spoke for Charles Darnley and they could convince the jury that he was innocent, بريء. But he was arrested once more because he was denounced, اتهم, by Monsieur Devarge, Madame Devarge, and some other person. We seek that citizen of a monde called Darnley. He is again a prisoner of Republic. Comment. This was said by the 4 rough men who rushed into Dr. Manette's house to arrest Charles Darnley. He was taken as a prisoner because he was accused by Monsieur Devarge, Madame Devarge, and a 3rd person of being an enemy of the Republic. Don't call me Solomon. Do you want me to be killed? Who said this to whom? John Parsons said Miss Pross' brother said this to Miss Pross. Why did the speaker refuse to be called Solomon? لماذا رفض أن يتنادى عليه باسم Solomon? Because he was disguised, كان متنكرا, as a French citizen, and he didn't want people to know that he carried an English name. You didn't use the name Solomon Pross when you were in England. I recognize you now. Who said this to whom? Of course, these words were said by Jerry Cruncher, said this to Solomon. What name did the other person carry in England? He carried the name John Parson. Why did he carry another name in Paris? Because he was disguised as a French citizen. I have other news, bad news. Charles has been arrested again. Comment. Sidney Carton said this to Mr. Lorry when he went to his office with Jerry Cruncher and John Parson. Carton knew through John Parson that Charles was arrested again, and Dr. Manette wouldn't be able to help him that time. دكتور مانت لن يستطيع أن يساعده هذه المرة لأن أساسا اسمه كان من ضمن الذين وجهوا الدعوة أو وجهوا الاتهام له مع مسيو ديفارج and مدام ديفارج، وطبعا ده تم بدون إذنه. And if I refuse to help you, there is no way you can force me. ما فيش طريقة تجبرني على إن أنا أساعدك. Who said this to whom? John Parser said this to Sidney Carton. What did the other person want from him? He wanted his help to let Charles Darnley escape from La Force. كان يريد مساعدته في تهريب Charles Darnley من سجن La Force. Could the other person force the speaker to help him? How? Yes, he could. He threatened to tell the people of Saint-Antoine that he was spying over them and that his name was netted in Madame Devarge's list. Roger Cly, who once was a partner of mine, has been dead for several years. Comment. John Parser said that to Sidney Carton when the latter told him he had been talking with Roger Cly in the wine shop. John Parser and Roger Cly had escaped from England and lived under false names in Paris. However, Sidney Carton could uncover them both. كشف الاثنين معا. Then who took him out of it? All that was in that coffin was paving stones. إذن مين الذي أخرجه؟ كل اللي كان في الكفن كان أحجار. Who said this to whom? Jerry Cruncher said this to John Parson. Who were they speaking about? They were speaking about Roger Cly. Why were the above words shocking to the other person? كانت صادمة له. John Parson was shocked how Jerry Cruncher knew about his plan with Roger Cly to escape from England. Only that if it goes badly with Charles, I will be able to see him one last time. Comment. Sidney Carton said this to Mr. Lorry when the latter asked him about his plan with John Parser to help Charles Darnley. Carton was planning to visit Charles in prison and put himself in his place, ويضع نفسه مكانه في السجن مستغلا الشبه الذي بينهما، الشبه الكبير اللي بينهم. So now you can also be accused in Saint-Antoine of having links with another spy working for the English government. Comment. Sidney Carton said this to John Parson when they uncovered his plan to help Roger Cly escape from England. Sidney Carton was pushing hard on Parser to force him to help in his plan to save Charles Darnley's life. I know that, but there is nothing more that you or Dr. Manette can do. Don't ask me what I am planning, sir. Comment. This is the last question, my dear students. Sidney Carton said this to Mr. Lorry when the latter asked about his plan to help Charles Darnley. Carton refused to tell Mr. Lorry about his plan. كان حاط خطته بمزيد من السرية علشان تنجح. Now, my dear students, let's see a part of the movie to support what we have studied today. Let's see.
Against the citizens of the Republic, you were sentenced to death by the guillotine. Taken away.
This is the scene during the trial of Charles Darnley.
Everyone, good Danny.
Evermore. You are accused as an aristocrat whose life is forfeit to the Republic.
Silence! Silence! The prisoner may speak if he so desires. Monsieur?
Your Honor, I no longer feel myself to be an aristocrat. I have voluntarily relinquished a title that I assure you was distasteful to me. I gave up all my property long ago, and I have been living by my own industry in England.
Yes. Is there anything else?
I've married a woman in England who is the daughter of citizen Alexander Manette, who sits with us here today.
Why have you returned to France?
To try to save the life of a prisoner here. Is that a crime in the eyes of the Republic?
This tribunal will ask the questions, monsieur. Have you any more statements to make?
This prisoner, this man, has already met his fate. I simply wish now to return to England. And I should like to call upon Dr. Manette so that this tribunal might hear his words.
Dr. Manette here will defend his son-in-law Charles Darnley. هيدافع
This
عنه
prisoner
بكل ما
stands
أوتي من
before you
قوة.
as one of my own family, as one dear to my heart as my own flesh and blood would be. He has been honorable to me and devoted to my daughter. He has never once spoken in favor of the aristocracy to me or to anyone else. On the contrary, he has renounced it before the world. He has given up his title, his worldly goods, and I ask you not to take his life. I ask you, I beg you, as a citizen, as a patriot, do not take his life.
Have you anything more to say?
إذا كان بيترجاهم أنه هو الراجل تخلى عن
Jury will render its
اسمه،
verdict.
تخلى عن أسرته، تخلى عن
Not
ثروته.
guilty. Not guilty. Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty. Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
All the juries said
You
that
heard
he
the
is
verdict
not
of the
guilty.
jury.
غير مذنب.
The prisoner is declared by this tribunal to be free.
Well, it is done.
Is it?
Have you not heard?
I am a patient woman. The time will come.
What is that?
The writings of Dr. Manette.
Hmm?
Oh, yes. His very own words. We found this diary in his room, did we
هنا
not, my
بتقول
good
إن
husband?
إحنا هنستخدم الأوراق اللي كتبها دكتور مانيت في
Patience.
اتهامه مرة
Not
أخرى.
long now. Not long now.
هنا شايفين هنا بيتقبض عليه مرة ثانية. That's enough for today, my dear students. We will continue and meet again with chapter 15. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being with me. Don't forget to put like and subscribe to my channel and share the video with your friends. Thank you and goodbye. See you inshallah with chapter 15. Thank you.